So welcome back, June. Lovely to have you, the Queen of the North. The video, our last video went down very well with our viewers. We got lots to chat over this morning, June. First of all, it's budget day. What are you expecting?
Well, they should just send a flyer out saying budget, latest news. You're all going to be skint. It will affect all of you. I'm off on a jet somewhere warm and sunny to give you money away. Cheers, Keir Starmer. Yeah, probably should be wearing that visor, won't he? Have you seen that picture of him in that visor from lockdown?
Yeah. I just put a post out, said just be prepared to have your trousers pulled down.
Yeah.
But talking about the budget, June, I just wondered if yesterday's announcement about the Southport incident, I wondered about the timing of that. It kind of got me thinking, was that somewhat deliberate? They announced that yesterday, the budget's today. Obviously, the budget is now going to be, taking up all the airtime. Do you see anything in that, or am I reading too much into it?
Well, there's more people than you reading things into it. Dominic Cummings, who is an insider, very intelligent man, probably a bit of a Fruit Loop in some areas, but nevertheless, he's been on the inside of Boris Johnson's cabinet and a close advisor, so he'll know how the big machine works, and he's visceral about it. He's saying they've released this, they knew about it from the beginning. He's saying that the BBC and the media have been gaslighting us about Southport. They knew instantly, the police would have known instantly. That's what he's saying. And this has been deliberately released in time to give us something to think about besides the budget. So I think you're probably on the money there.
Have we been gaslit, you think?
Yeah.
No doubt.
The thing is this, what you've got to look at, in a fair and reasonable society, people are allowed to have anger. It's a human emotion. It's one we find difficult to control. It's like your sex drive. It's like love. It's like any emotion that we have. It comes in us sometimes for the most obtuse reasons. This isn't obtuse. We've had machete attacks, stabbings. We've had strangulations. We've had bombings. We've had truck ram raids, which is why your city centres have these massive concrete bollards. This isn't the public overreacting. In fact, I'm going to show you something. I'll keep talking if I can. This is not the public overreacting or sharing their prejudices. This is just a told you so moment for the public. And people's lives have been ruined. I mean, Bernie Spofforth, a decent middle-aged businesswoman who's been putting excellent material out concerning all the fear about global warming, about the effect with China, so much stuff. And she's a slightly built 50-odd-year-old woman with a business, lives in leafy Cheshire, and they sent a meat wagon and 3 cop cars to arrest her. She was later released. I think the Free Speech Union helped. Their lawyers kind of handled it. They were trying to pin the blame on her. The blame is on the government, in my eyes, because if you didn't keep trying to protect bad people, forget skin colour, forget religion.
It's nothing to do with it, is it? It's nothing to do with it.
What we're faced with is we have a government prepared to shield wrongdoers for the sake of trying to keep the peace, trying to basically not let it get out in the open that they are incompetent, they are foolish, they are driving us into something they probably want anyway, which is a product replacement, and we're the product. They don't want us to talk about that because it shows them up. They're not protecting Islam. They're not protecting religion. They're protecting themselves. These are, most people in politics are really quite vile. And a lot of people that come into politics that want to make a difference, you've only got to look at Rupert Law. Rupert Law's a multimillionaire businessman. He's still running his businesses. He's competent, he's articulate, he's exceptionally well versed on his subject matter, and he is making such a lot of progress in Parliament where DEFRA lets us down. Now, this is a man who isn't even taking his salary. His salary is going back into the community through various charities. He's having more surgeries than seasoned MPs. Now, that's a man who's going into politics to make a difference.
For the right reasons, yeah.
So we need to get more of them in, because the more of them that we have, we've got to forget Tice. Forget him. He's like that bloody relative that lets you down at weddings. Oh, God, no, me Uncle Richard's here. He's done it so, picture himself pointing to Ukraine flag. stood outside Ukraine. No, we don't want you in Ukraine. We know it's a fake war.
I love the analogy. I love the analogy. It's a good job I weren't drinking my tea because I would have probably spat it out then, June. I mean, there's a lot of people saying this morning that Starmer and the government knew about this, and the quote is weeks ago. I believe they knew a lot long before that. I believe they knew very shortly after the incident what this was all about. That's my belief. Now, I'm told that Richard Tice is going to ask the very big question at PMQs this afternoon. And if it's the question that I think he's going to ask, this is what a lot of us already knew weeks and weeks, if not months ago. So how could the government, how are we expected to believe that the Prime Minister himself wasn't aware?
Well, this is where, despite Richard letting us down and calling us that lot, I'm that lot, you're that lot, I'm not bothered. Think what you want, say what you want. It won't change the way I act. But it will also change me supporting reform, because they're our only hope politically. And we can have all our marches, we can have all our rallies and all our get-togethers, and nothing will change. You'll just go round in a circle like a washing machine, because legislation's made in one place. Now, he's got a voice this afternoon. Anything that gets said in PMQs gets registered in Hansards. So there it is for posterity. People will be able to refer back to it, whatever it is he's going to say. And to be fair to him, he has gone on about this quite a bit. He's mentioned the fact that he says quite often about the government gaslighting us on a lot of different topics. You know, he's made a mistake and it's been highlighted, and I'm sure he's dreadfully embarrassed about it. The sad thing is, Paul, if they'd have got me on that show, if I'd have been the politician and they said that to me, what about the Tommy Robinson March? For a start, it wasn't. It was called the Unite the Kingdom March.
Exactly.
You know, when she was trying to assimilate some corollary between reform, because that's what they're desperate to do, because then they've got reform by the gulags, because it's this tenuous link to someone who's on a watch list. They can bring them into disrepute. I'd have turned it right round on Camilla Tominey, and I'd have said, hang on a minute, missus, these are your viewers. These people are your viewers. Tell me how you feel about the march. Did you go? Did you bother to go to see what your viewers were interested in? No, did you yell? I'd have just switched it back onto GB News. They'd have had to carry the can. But getting back to Richard, yes, of course, they must have known. If they didn't know, why didn't they know? I'm not saying they would have had the intricate details, because they'd obviously have to arrest him and find out. But just like we found out, oh, he came from Rwanda, you know, parents came from Rwanda. And then there was this convenient timing to him missing. I don't want to say too much because it's a live case.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But nevertheless, what I want viewers to realise is we are now in a different landscape. To say, when Tommy got arrested the last time, let's use that as a point in time. I'm watching Tommy outside the courtroom in Leeds. He wasn't interrupting a trial. The trial had finished. They were going back for sentencing. They'd been found guilty. That's why they had their overnight bags when they were making those foul, obscene comments to Tommy. And then all of a sudden, this police van turns up, they arrest him. They looked a bit uncomfortable, but nevertheless, they get on with it, don't they? Now, when that happened, I put it on my Facebook page. You know, I had UK Politics Uncovered. And I got a warning from Facebook to say that any post referring to Tommy Robinson would risk losing the page. They just shut you down. Like on Facebook, well, don't care who you were, how many followers you had. At about 8,000 at the time. And I thought, oh, bloody hell. And I had to go through my Facebook page and take 3 years of work down where I'd covered things that Tommy was doing, to go through it all, scroll through. 5 hours it took me to save my page. Now, they're not doing it now. You can talk about it. And they have to allow that because Musk is on the scene and Musk is letting you talk about it. So however these characters operate, your Yvette Coopers and your Keir Starmers and, you know, Belmarsh Prison, whatever, however they operate, it's in the open. We can tag Belmarsh Prison. They've got a Twitter page and say, just letting you know, we're deeply concerned about the well-being. We can be polite, no point being nasty. But the thing is, the only way to deal with bullies, and your government are bullies, the police service seem to be working to their command, is to out them. That's the only way to deal with the bully, is to out them. No better place to out them than on social media. And you know, people's, never mind just the ones that, the poor children that got killed and the families, they're wrecked for life now.
This
But
seems
then
to have almost, this is what really gets to me, June. What actually happened seems to have been forgotten. It's no longer the story, and we must never forget what happened, and we must never forget those beautiful girls.
Well, this is what I'll show you something. I'll find it. I was absolutely aghast at Tim Farron, who is an MP, is the Lib Dem MP for South Lakeland, and I'll try and find it. You're absolutely right about people forgetting what went on. It's not just the girls that got killed, it's the lives after that. Those parents have no lives. They don't have any lives now.
It's over.
They live with that. And people are obviously feeling justified in their fear and their assessment of the situation, that he was a wrong 'un from the area that was suspected, which is a connection to extremist Islam. So Tim Farron wrote this on his page. Now, Tim Farron keeps his Facebook page squeaky clean. He doesn't have anything about anything on that isn't local, shaking hands, kissing kittens, whatever. Anyway, he put, 3 little girls were murdered 3 months ago. Then and now, it depresses me immensely that some people, this is all, the 3 little girls, 3 little girls were murdered 3 months ago. Right, that's it. That's all they get. That's their
incidental. Incidental. Right. Yeah.
Then and now, it depresses me immensely that some people seem determined to find a way to make this evil tragedy something that justifies their prejudices, or worse, still pander to other people's for electoral purposes. So at the time, he'd had 180,000 views and 2,000 likes. So I responded, because I couldn't keep my gob shut, your feeble comments, because it winds me up, and this is why I attack MPs, because they deserve it. Your feeble comments are a disgrace to the people of this country. You're determined to undermine our justified anger. The amount of attacks we've had to suffer is way too high. Beheadings, machete attacks, bombings, stabbings. Your attitude breeds resentment. Stop protecting wrongdoers and grow up. I also put some other stuff on. Now, mine got 45 views and 45,000 views and 3,000 likes. So on a ratio, my response was more popular than his tweet. What really naffs me off with these political types is, as you say, those 3 little girls haven't got anywhere near the airtime coverage they should have got. The first thing they've done is concentrate on the reaction to the tragedy and publicise the reaction. And the reaction is always going to be the same, because we are sick of watching them. When Amber Rudd was Home Secretary, bussing people in, supposedly little boys with beards and wives at home, even on buses where they had to close the curtains so we couldn't see what was happening. Right back to Theresa May's day, right back to before that. This is a build-up. It's like watching a pot of sticky soup boiling on a pan, and people have had enough. They're not right-wing that have had enough. My solicitor isn't right-wing. He's a bit of a podgy bloke in +4s that goes hunting, shooting and fishing. He's not right-wing. He's just country boy. And he's absolutely appalled. So now he's right-wing, is he?
Yeah.
This is right-wing anyway. And when Joe Cox was murdered, they blasted out from the media, from the TV and in the press, right throughout the trial, right before, I'm trying to find this tenuous connection to some right-wing extreme group, which was never proved, because clearly the boy was disturbed. The man was disturbed. He was a nut job.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I think they're all nut jobs. You've got to be a nut job to murder anyway. I mean, I can understand it, a crime of passion in the heat of the moment, but not when you're planning things and
cold-blooded.
Yeah, cold-blooded, premeditated, whatever you want to call it. And the thing is, I've spoken to someone who's in mental health. She was on the board of people that helped put Rose West away. And people are always afraid that they're going to get off with mental health. I think it's one of the best things that can happen to them, because they'll never get out. They'll never get out. And if Ian Brady can write in his own words, this is hell. That's how he described Broadmoor. This is hell. if he can drive someone like him to think he's living in hell, and that's job done. Because they never get out. People just reassess and they go, no, he's not fit to go out. Fine. Get him on some heavy meds, get him slapped in a cell and just rot away like some old potato in a field. I think mental health, brilliant. Get them locked away, high security, miserable places, no way out. But what's going to happen because it's justice system? Some left-wing crank of a psychologist is going to sit there one day, sucking on a pencil as he goes in front of a parole board, and he's going to convince them that he's well-adjusted. If he can convince the BBC he's a nice little boy and get their poster boy on children in need, if he can do that at that age with all that crap going around in his mind, then he can do it as an adult, can't he? So you can't trust these people because the sociopaths, they've no empathy. They don't feel what we feel. They just get on with it because they're nutters.
Well, let's go back to Tommy for a minute. I mean, look, where is any compassion for this man? I mean, there has been no compassion on offer for this man for many, many, many years now. I was in court on Monday, June, and I've got to tell you, sitting in the public gallery, looking down at him on his own in that dock, listening to what was being said, the whole enormity of the whole thing really struck me. There was, maybe 50, 60 people in the room. God knows how much this was costing. We've got murderers running around. We've got serial people that have committed serious offences of the nature that I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, being released early. And I'm looking and I'm just thinking, I can't believe what I'm seeing here. And when the judge is summing up and saying how important it was that the law was upheld, and we all agree that the law has to be upheld, but the sentence, even though it was not as harsh as it could have been, 9 months in solitary confinement, where you're living in fear potentially for your life, where you don't know where your food is coming from, you don't know what's in it, that 9 months is going to feel like 9 years.
Well, it's disjointed because at the end of the day, the first consideration for incarceration should be a threat to the public. He's not a threat to the public. The worst thing that Tommy Robinson could do is offend you with what he says. And I am sick to death. I am absolutely sick to death of watching the media churn it out. They're so pathetic. They're so lacking in skill and conscience that every time they mention Tommy Robinson, they have to mention that it's not his real name. Try doing it with Grant Shapps, the MP. He's got a list of pseudonyms longer than the bloody fugitive. So they always have to list that it's not his real name, and they always have to mention the EDL, which as far as I can see was debunked about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But when they talk about Hugh Edwards, who's been done for watching child porn, they don't say, and the child pornographer, Hugh Edwards. No, they say the broadcaster. Why do they do that? Because it's their choice to do so. Why do they cushion the wrongdoings of people that they prefer and yet escalate the wrongdoings of people they don't want to be? Because they don't want him to grow in popularity because he can draw a crowd. Just like, unfortunately, I know a lot of people are mad at Reform right now, but Reform are just as much a victim of this society as Tommy Robinson. They're just the same victim, except it's on a political footing and this is on a people's movement footing. But I've been around the political side of it for a long time, and I watched I think it was I can't remember which election it was, but UKIP at the time got 4 million votes on one seat, and the Scottish National Party got 4 million votes and 54 seats. And how do you fight a system like that? The system's wrong, so the only thing you can do is get inside it, and that's why Reform, whether you like him or you don't, or whether you chuck it towel in, that's it, I'm giving my membership up, then you're a fool. Because if you were supporting them and they're trying to move forward, if you think you're going to start a new party, and parties aren't the way to go, may I say. I don't even agree with Reform, but we've got to get inside the system, and we're in with 5 of them in, and we can get some more in. We've got to get inside the system before we can turn the system into something where we have control again, because Reform will back direct democracy, where the big stuff comes back to the people. So they can't just roll out HS2 and send billions and billions to tunnelling companies. They have to come back to the people with a schedule of what they plan to do, and the people can say, no way, I never catch a train, I'm not interested. and then it gets voted down, just like they do in Switzerland. But you've got to get politicians that are interested in it. All of them in reform are interested in it. 1 or 2 Tories are interested in it. 2 Labour are interested in it. So you've got to change minds. Nigel Farage, no matter what you think about him, not speaking, and you've got to cut him some slack here, because he's a shrewd operator and he might be quiet at times when other people are speaking out, but he's been doing this game a bloody long time and he's survived. He's survived within the establishment. And the last thing we want is someone like that on the fringe like Tommy, because that's where they want us all, swept into the gutter.
June, I agree with so much of what you said, but I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, because look, yes, I agree. Reform pretty much, let's be honest, they are pretty much the only show in town for a lot of us on the centre right. That's a fact. They have 5 sitting MPs. They have a voice in Parliament. You're right. We must get into the system. I go along with all of that. The problem that I have, and a lot of my viewers, and I'm one of these people. Actually, Tommy himself said it before the election. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than our movement. This is bigger than anyone. This is about winning back our country. So Tommy himself gets it, and he never expected Nigel or Reform to back him as an individual. I think that would have been naive, and it would have been wrong. We all appreciate that. But there's a trust issue here, June. How many times can your partner cheat on you before you say enough's enough? Now, I understand that Richard and Nigel have to be very careful. We all get that. But to describe us as that lot was a bridge too far for a lot of people. Now, look, they can convince me, maybe. They can convince you, very possibly. They can convince a large number of people that actually they are probably the only show in town. But there's also a huge amount of people that are passionately invested in Tommy, in the way he's been treated, and they will not return to Reform. It doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter what I say.
No.
The damage is being done by people within Reform. They need to stop shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, you're talking generally shooting themselves in the foot. The 4 other MPs haven't done anything wrong. I don't think Nigel's done anything wrong. I think Richard Tice has. He's a dick. What he said was clumsy. And actually, when I watched it back a few times, I thought, usually Richard Tice is a bit, I suppose you'd call him smarmy. He's a bit smooth, isn't he? A bit like typical Tory boy. And he looked flustered. He looked het up. The rest of the interview was about 10 minutes. Was fine on other topics, the budget, stuff. But he looked flustered and he handles himself really poorly. He's done it a number of times. So I don't see Reform as a problem. I see him as the problem. But he's still got a seat and he's still in the team that can get the cup, if you know what I mean. And I know that they will have lost supporters. I'm not trying to change that. People should do what they feel like doing. But don't expect to change anything. Don't sit here when you sat here in 5 years' time, still feeling exactly the same, with Tommy Robinson being treated exactly the same. Don't complain then, because what will happen now, it's such a long game. I can remember fighting for Brexit, and then somebody said me, an MP, well done, June, thanks for all your help, and I'm feeling pretty good. And he said, and now what we have to do, he put out a schedule of the next moves. I thought that were it. We got the vote, we won, what's your problem? And he said, the next 10 years. And I went, 10 years? 10 years of my bloody life. And here I am, 9 years into it. I couldn't get over that's how they look at things. That's how they plan things out. And I don't think you've heard the last from, it won't. Nigel Farage is smart. He leaves things, his timing.
But he wasn't smart, June, sorry, can I just say he wasn't smart when he was being interviewed by GB News just after the riots. He threw Tommy under a bus during that interview. So, look, we'll move on from that a little bit, but let me ask you this. How can Reform, and I know that you're saying it's Richard Tice, but Nigel has had his 2 pennies worth as well. How can Reform win back the people's trust and belief? Those that have now saying, I've had enough, because my insiders within Reform tell me that this week it's been absolute chaos.
Well, there's not many people inside Reform. There's your 5 MPs. They've all got someone in Parliament, aides, blah, 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 but they're tied with non-disclosure agreements. They've got an office manager and one other person. There's not a lot of people because he got shut of them all. Not Tice. He sidely moved Tice and came back as leader and got rid of Paul Oakden. Can't remember names of other people. So there isn't a lot of people there. And I think Reform will look at it's. They're going to lose those people. They won't fight to get them back. They'll just have to accept their losses. That's what I would do if it's my party. I'd accept my losses. They'll go somewhere else, start a fringe movement, or reignite UKIP, or whatever they decide to do, because they've spit the dummy out, and that's what they want to do, and that might make them feel better. And that won't affect Reform, because Reform isn't after them, because no matter how much of a movement, how many followers you or I have, it's not big enough. What Reform want is all those people out there who don't watch me and you. And there's millions of them. And there's millions of them that still see Nigel Farage as unsavoury. They see him as racist. He's got to win them over. It's not about winning the people that chuck the towel in back. Is
it time that Nigel perhaps, I mean, I'm just asking your opinion, June. I'm not suggesting that it is, but I just want your take on this. I often think that, just like the other day with Richard, who actually I think is probably a man with a good heart. You know, I try and find the best in people.
Right.
I think he's got a good heart. I just think he's a posh boy that doesn't know how to react in the right manner sometimes. But is there a case for Nigel now going, well, look, you know what? It doesn't matter what we say to you guys. You're never going to be on side. Let's take the Donald Trump route. Let's be a little bit more, instead of trying to appease the questions, what about trying to attack them? Pretty much like you said in the beginning, your approach would have been entirely different. Your approach would have been to put it straight back at Rebecca Tominey and GB News and say, well, what about you? Is it time for Nigel to become a bit more Trump-like?
No, massive difference with where Nigel Farage sits and where Trump sits, and this is where the confusion, because they're both famous characters, you're assimilating them as the same. He's a former sitting president. He's had the country once, and he's standing for presidency again. Nigel Farage is only an MP. He's nothing special. He's just got an MP's job. He's no more important in the political arena than Robert Jenrick with his new hairdo and his slimming pills. He's no more important than an MP, but because he's such a big and famous with us, anyway, you know, with Britain, although he's quite famous throughout the world, people assimilate him. It's different jobs. It's like asking why a councillor isn't doing what the Prime Minister's doing. That's how far apart they are. So it's not time. He should just please, if you're watching this, just toe the line, Nigel. Keep your seat. Look after your constituents. Say as much as you can when you're in Parliament. Grow your brand, get some councillors, get some more MPs, create a voice. Then when you've got those sort of people, you know, 97 seats they came second. If they come into first position next time, plus the 5 they've got, plus a shed load of councillors, you've got a voice. And the other thing you've not got to lose sight of, the value of Nigel Farage in Parliament is invaluable, because he's also got a separate movement working on the WHO pandemic treaty. We're all emotional now about Southport, about Tommy, but they're small issues. The WHO pandemic treaty loses your country. This country you're fighting for, this country that you're walking down the streets for, getting train tickets, putting a sandwich up, going to the pub after, all that effort that you're putting in to save your country will not be saved if that WHO pandemic treaty gets signed. And Nigel Farage is the only man with the capabilities of talking to other MPs who will listen to an educated man, a decent bloke like Farage. Quite a few people like him in Westminster. And he can talk them round into voting against it. Because once that is signed, our sovereignty is toast. It's toast. Because they have the right for lockdowns, forced medical mandates. It's all in the treaty. Lots of countries, Hungary's refused it, Poland's refused it, I think Portugal's refused it. We need to get enough MPs to realise, you've got to remember as well, a lot of MPs are stupidly thick and they do not read documents. They didn't read the withdrawal agreement. Nobody would have signed it if they'd read it. So they don't read anything. So they'll just send these emails back when you complain about the WHO pandemic. That is the most important document this decade. That's the most important document for every single person watching this, whether you think Richard Tice is a pin-up boy or you hate his guts. That's what's going to happen, and we need people fighting that. I can't fight it. You can't fight it. And if you got 20 million people walking down the streets of Britain, it won't make any difference. They didn't take any notice when 1 million marched for the Iraq war. They still went in. They'll do what they want. And unfortunately, the WHO, which I say is a cowboy outfit, the WHO has no legitimate jurisdiction. It's basically an international quango that's been set up. It's funded by China and Bill Gates. And who makes money out of rollouts for mandated medication? Bill Gates, because you've got to buy it off him. So these are really dangerous times. Really dangerous times. Bigger than what's happening to Tommy. Bigger than what Richard Tice did.
So your message, June, your message really is bigger picture, and this is what I'm saying. I think I get that. Tommy certainly gets it. I know he does. For 100% fact, he gets the bigger picture.
Well, but we haven't to throw Tommy on. I've done my email to the prison warden, and I've put my weight behind it. As in, I have 310,000 followers. Many thousands of them are deeply concerned about the welfare of Stephen Yaxley Lennon.
Yeah.
Prison number, blah, blah, blah. Because if I was a prison warden reading that, and they've got your email with your statistics and a few others, then when they're reading that, it's not about the email, is it? It's not about me writing for you. It's about, Jesus Christ, no, how many followers?
Yeah.
Oh, what if they put it up on Twitter? Oh, we have. Oh no! So you can't hide. Then you can't that's what it's about.
Yeah.
The bullies. So with a bully, give them nowhere to hide. Give them nowhere to hide. They've got a Twitter page of Belmarsh. Board of Governors. I've put it up on my page. I think they've got a Twitter page. We can just tag them. Just
if you was Reform's head of public relations.
Oh, can you imagine?
And by the way, I think there's a job there for you. Now, if you was Reform's head of PR, what would you say today? And how can we, as a group, as the centre right, whatever you want to call it, stop all the squabbling, stop all the bickering, get together and win this bloody country back for the sake of goodness? How can we do it? And what would you say? What would you say as head of Reform Public Relations?
If I was the head of public relations, then I would. Do you want this?
Come on,
I would say, keep our Richard quiet, will you? Keep our Richard quiet, and don't let him talk about X, Y, and Z. And don't get him up to apologise. Do not get him up to say sorry. That'll just be worse. That'll be worse. 50% of people won't believe him anyway. He probably won't know how to word it properly because he hasn't meant to offend. It's very difficult to apologise for something when you haven't meant to offend. And he's a bloke. Blokes aren't good at apologising, are they? Jesus Christ, I live with one. So he's all right, actually. I love him to death and I've always fancied him, but there have been times when I've dumped spaghetti bolognese over his bloody habit. So what I would do, I wouldn't try and win people back because I think that's condescending. I think that's undermining their anger. I think you've got to let them be angry and let them say, right, stick your party, stick it up your backside. Let that unfold. That's what I'd do. And then I'd let people calm down and come to their own decision. And if they leave, don't wish them any harm, let them walk away. And if they decide not to, if they decide to give them another chance, I would always give them another chance. I don't even like reform. I don't even like political parties. But, I'm swimming in the water. The ship has sunk. That's the country. I'm swimming in the water and it's the only lifeboat.
In town, yeah, I get that.
I've got a life jacket. No, stuff that. I'm off that boat.
I'll tell you someone who did get it right and who continues to get it right for me, and he's got it right for a long time. It's Ben Habib.
Yes.
And why is there not a place in reform for Ben?
I don't know what's gone on there. Ben didn't win in 2 elections. That's got to affect something. Now, personally, I think Wellingborough, you're absolutely bonkers not having him as your MP. Bonkers. And I'll see on your thread and on my thread, oh, Ben Habib for number 10. And I used to be on a podcast with him where it was Ben at 10. We used to do 10 minutes. He's very informed. He's very gentlemanly. He could run the country. He'd be a great prime minister, but we don't vote for prime ministers in this country. We vote for a party and then the party selects the prime minister. So you've got a really good guy that could do that. But unfortunately, he spit his dummy out with reform because he's been sideswiped. And they've brought this, I can't remember his name. He's a Muslim businessman.
Zia Youssef, Mohammed Youssef,
But he's a bit anti-Islam, I think, and loaded, and he's poured a shed load of money in. So he's going to have a say, isn't he? And it's not a bad look for reform, considering that you've got left-wing idiots calling them racist. You just wheel him to the front, go, away. So I don't know what's going on there, and it's easy for Ben to discuss. I can discuss Tommy Robinson. You can. So can Ben. We're members of the public and we're just commentators. Once you get put in the House of Commons, what you can say and what you can do on your Twitter page, you've only got to look what it's done to Andrew Bridgen. Once you start down a particular route, then they have calls to investigate. And this is why they're being overcautious. But they're new. They've only been in 2 minutes. They've only been in office since July. They've never been off the back. The media have never been off the back. So it's easier for Ben to sound like we do because he's not under that scrutiny. I'll tell you now, if I very much doubt if Ben was an MP, you'd have got the feedback you're getting from him now. And I like Ben. Ben knows I like him. Ben knows I support him. I communicate with him all week. In WhatsApp, and I share his stuff because he makes so much sense. But we've got to be realistic. The realistic thing is, how would Ben be if he was in Parliament? Because it's a shaky road. Imagine being in a business, a job, with 650 other people glaring at you. Excuse the fingers. I've got a new potato peeler. It's nearly. I'm like Edward Scissorhands. Looking at you, glaring at you, not agreeing with you. Probably you're all sat together on your own, you know what I mean? They won't mix much. I don't know how Ben would react and speak about the Tommy Robinson issue, you know, with the party and him. I don't know how he would react. You'd have to ask him if he was an MP. Would he be more cautious? I think he would. I think he would be more cautious. And you've got to remember, Ben's also like a politician. He's been an MEP. He stood as a candidate. And they're very shrewd about how they choose the vocabulary. I mean, he put that tweet out that said, you stand with your allies. Well, technically speaking, Reform is still an ally. So, but saying that makes them side with the people who are mad at them. So you've got to look at it in the round. And in the round, you know, it's very difficult to work out what people will do in different circumstances. I think to not have Ben, I think he might still be a member of Reform, actually. I'm not sure. But I think to not have Ben in Reform is a loss.
Yeah.
I think to not have Ben as an MP somewhere is a loss. He's good at commentating and he gets invited. You've got to remember as well, the good thing that Ben's got going for him, he gets on Sky and he gets on the BBC. So he won't want to lose that foothold. And if he was an MP and he was defending Tommy Robinson, it'd be toast. They won't put anybody on that does. You've seen what they're like. They're horrible. They're horrible.
That's a nice way of describing it. That's the polite way of describing it. June, it's been absolutely amazing having you on. The time just flies. Thank you so much. I think the comment section is probably going to be a light for one reason or another for what one of us has said. But thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And you're well done for sending that email off as well. That's exactly what we need. I put
it in a WhatsApp group as well. There's about another 20 odd people sent emails.
Brilliant. June, thank you so much. Okay. And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, yeah.
Wherever that is.
I don't get any trick-or-treaters. That sign in the window puts them off.
Thanks, June. Appreciate it. All the best.